in this video, we're going to kind of progress onto creating the intro of our film trailer. And 90% of the composers that you listen to and that you talk to, when you ask them how they generate their musical ideas, it's infuriating because from the outside looking in, it seems like sometimes what we do is, oh, got it. We reach into thin air and just kind of pull it out. In part, that's the result of exercising our musical muscles, kind of like what we talked about before. The more you do it, the easier it kind of becomes to just grab an idea. But 90% of the composers you talk to say that their ideas come out of improvisation, right? They sit down on their primary instrument. If they're a guitarist, they pick up their Les Paul. If they're a pianist, they sit in front of their MIDI controller or their Steinway, and they noodle. They literally just noodle and improvise, either against picture if they're composing to picture, or they'll just play if they're looking for a theme or if they're writing some production music. And that is where inspiration comes from. I think oftentimes after that first kind of thought hits, it can start in one of three potential places. We can either get a melodic idea first. I really hope no one finds my iPhone because there are a lot of really embarrassing audio files of me just humming ideas into my phone. So you can start with melody. You can start with harmony, the chord structure, or you can start with rhythm. I think rhythm is the least common place to begin. Usually for me, it's either melody or harmony that comes first, but you can certainly begin with rhythm if it's a very rhythmic piece. For me, oftentimes what determines the sequence of events in terms of what comes next is determined by what I thought of first. So for example, if I come up with a melody, generally move on to harmony and then end with rhythm. By contrast, if chord structure strikes my fancy first, I will then follow with either melody or rhythm. And finally, if rhythm should be the thing that kind of arrives to me first while I'm improvising, I usually then move on to harmony because that kind of grounds everything. If you get the rhythm and the harmony kind of grounded, it makes a melody and ending with a melody easier because all the pieces are kind of pre-assembled. So with that in mind and kind of the method to my madness for generating musical ideas, let's go do some improvising and see if we can generate an intro.
All right, you guys, we are starting our writing process in earnest. It's for real this time. Okay, so you are going to see the whole process, mistakes, successes. It's all going to be very real from here on out. We're just writing music. And I always joke that as a composer, we get paid to make mistakes, but we only make money from the good ones. So let's get started, you guys. Let's noodle. So again, I'm a pianist, so I'm going to pull open a piano patch and see what happens here. Kind of like that in G minor. And there it is. That's the idea. And we figured it out just by noodling. Let's record it. All right, I think that's kind of the meat and potatoes of it, you guys. So again, if we think back to our anatomy of a trailer, what we kind of remember is that this is maybe a portion of a film trailer in which we're establishing our world. So maybe we need some like hits. I don't want to do any hits that are too big. Maybe we'll start with a visceral hit. Yeah, let's give that a go. So you'll notice that this stuff kind of has to be timed. So let's go ahead and time these intro hits a little bit. Aha. There we go. There we go. Just quantize that to the grid. Yeah, okay. And again, we don't want to use the same hit every single time or it's going to be kind of boring. So now maybe is the time where we're going to use some of these little low impact flavorings. There we go. So we're already diversifying our hits a little bit. Okay. Yeah, and you know what? Part of me thinks that having two big hits right at the beginning here might be too much. So let's split these up. Yeah, let's go like that. I think this might work. So here's where this hit should land, and it's right in place. So we're going to go maybe something like big hit, slightly smaller hit, and maybe alternate a little bit. And you know what? There's actually a little bit of decay on this. Check this out. Take a listen to this. So I'm going to quantize it. We're getting some artifacts that are part of the sample at the end that we don't really want. So I think what we're going to do is just shorten it. Shorten it, and we're going to go ahead and increase the release and the decay just a little bit so it lasts a little longer. Let's see how that's. Yeah, I think that's better. And that's a little bit better. And why not? Let's move this compressor up. And so we can make it last just a little longer. We're going to go ahead and add some reverb. Let's hear how this sounds. I want something a little bit longer, so I'll go ahead and put the tail up. You know what? Let's change the setting here. Let's go with a large, let's go with a large hall maybe. Let's just hear how this sounds. Yes. Okay. But you hear how that low end is building up. Rumble, 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 rumble. So we'll just get rid of some of that low end on the reverb. And, you know, I want something a little bit pearlier with the piano. So I think what I might do is just take the piano melody, that da, 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 and take it up an octave. And I want to hear it. So let's turn the MIDI playback on. I'm going to actually take this the velocities on this piano down. Make it just a little bit quieter. And you know what? Let's do this. This is technically cheating, but I kind of don't care. I'm going to go ahead and copy this piano into 2 different regions. And I'm just going to put the low end on this bottom region here. And on this upper region here, I'm just going to put the melody. Let's try a reverb that's a bit larger than life. Let's try this Valhalla again. All right, that is what I'm talking about. Okay, it feels just a little pearlier. It feels just a little bit more suspenseful. Just those small little details kind of do a lot. All right, I think let's try putting some just small strings up top. And less is more, you guys, because in a film trailer, this is oftentimes going to be the part where there's going to be dialogue. They're going to be setting up the world. And so I think what we want to do is just have a single sustained note. And we're playing in the key of G minor right now. So we're just going to go ahead and hold a high G up here. Yeah, let's try a harmonic or a sustain. We'll play the sustain first. That's a little too much. Ooh, that's nice and mysterious. Let's try that sustain patch. And again, I'm just using a little bit of this quiet sustain from Soaring Strings. Yes, that's the idea. Okay, but I think I want to go an octave up. Yeah, get some nasty tension in there. So here's what I'm doing. I'm going 1, 3. And what causes that tension, you guys, is that's a second. That's an interval of a second. It's an A and a B flat, and that kind of creates that nasty, delicious tension that we're hearing. So I'm going to play it in first, and then I'm going to program in some mod wheel. And you know, again, it's too much. It's too much. You guys, the classic error of the composer is that we can actually, in essence, we can really overplay. Again, when we're writing to picture and when we're writing for media, the goal is not to overextend. The goal is to let the picture tell the story. So let's keep it simpler. Let's give it another go. I think that's the ticket. So now let's just go ahead and give it some dynamic curve. Again, we really don't have any mod wheel action happening in here. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the mod wheel. And I think what I'm going to do actually is I'm just going to go in here and delete it. Gone. And this is how we do this a lot, you guys. We'll, especially if we need two hands for something we're programming, we'll program an instrumental line and then we'll go back in and we'll add the modulation with the mod wheel. And that's what's going to give this the real dynamic curve. Let's go and do that. Hey, that's sounding all right. And you can see that it kind of just programmed it in as I was tweaking that mod wheel around. And it's sounding pretty good, you guys, and we're building tension nicely. There's a couple of hits in here with which I really feel like there are these things in trailer writing that we call whoosh bangs. And basically what a whoosh bang is exactly what it sounds like. It's a whoosh, and then the bang is the hit. And you can kind of hear that on this first one here. Whoosh, bang. And I think there's a couple different ways to create a whoosh bang. One of my favorite things to do is actually just import a cymbal, Rev, and it's like you basically record a crash cymbal from like a rock drum kit. And then you bring that audio in and you reverse the audio. So instead of going, psh, it goes, kind of sucks it in. And I think that that'd be pretty sick. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an audio track here. And I'm just going to go ahead and import an existing one that I have. Let's see. I think the file is called Rev Crash. There we go. Let's see if this is the one I had in mind. Ah, look at that. And you see where a normal crash audio track would be like this big hit here, and then there would be a decay. We've reversed to this file, so it goes, basically does the exact opposite. So let's put this in place. So our second hit happens right here. So we're going to align this reverse crash cymbal with that hit. And if you've got a little bit of overlap, that's okay. It depends actually upon what effect you're going for. But if it's like all the way over here, you're going to get pause, bang, which is what you don't want. So I'm going to go ahead and let it overlap just a hair. Get rid of all this extra on the tail end. And then sometimes what I do, so we've got just a little bit of overlap, is I'll actually go ahead and I'll add some reverb. So I'm just going to go ahead and add a default patch of my Space Designer here. And let's just take a listen to what this impact is going to sound like. All right, that's sounding a little bit better. And what I'll do is, I think the fade is just too long. Because again, think about this in terms of what a picture editor is going to be doing, you guys. They're going to be having pretty clean cuts for this part. And so we don't want, and then the hit, we want a shorter rise and then a hit. Yeah, okay, that's feeling a little bit better. And I think we want another one, but I'm going to show you a different way we can utilize a reverse crash cymbal like this. And what we'll do is we're just going to copy this over. I just duplicated this audio file, and I should be naming stuff. Guys, especially with like large trailer sessions like this, do yourself a favor and name your tracks. So I'll call this Cymbal Whoosh 1. And I'll call the second one Cymbal Whoosh 2. And I'm going to show you another trick that you can do with this one. So instead of putting that reverb that I added in the very first effect slot, I'm actually going to use a tremolo. So I'll go down to modulation. I'm going to go ahead and add a tremolo. I am going to put the phase to 0 here. And that'll make sure these are aligned. I'm going to make it feel real, take the smoothing actually all the way away. And let's try adding, let's try eighth notes. And I'm going to play you what this whoosh bang sounds like without the tremolo first. Okay, and here's with. That's pretty nasty. And if we want to make it sound even a little more intense, I'll just automate some volume curves in here. And then also what I'm going to do, you guys, is be sure that you're not automating only volume, but you can also automate all your effects. So this rate here is the rate at which we get this pulsing effect. And I'm going to go in, I'm going to go to my tremolo and my automation, and I'm going to actually automate the rate. So for the first portion of the whoosh, I'm going to let it stay a little constant at the rate. I'll zoom in a little bit here so we can see this a little better. There we go. I'm going to let that rate remain pretty constant. And then as it grows, I'm actually going to have it rise to something crazy like, I feel like, let's see, what is that value there? That is like a 64th note. Let's see how this sounds. That's pretty sick. What I'm noticing in my string programming is that it's feeling a little thin. It feels a little plasticky. And so sometimes what I'll do, not even sometimes, you guys, we do this all the time. We're actually going to layer our string libraries. And I think what I'm going to layer my soaring strings with that I used before is maybe just a little bit of Symphobia, because the soaring strings have this great vibrato, which is how fast the string player is moving their finger on the fingerboard to make it feel like a human voice vibrato that has a little bit of warble to it. And it's really nice and delicate and fragile sounding, but I think I want something that's a little bit bigger and cinematic to go along with it. So let's try doubling some of our Symphobia with our soaring strings. Ooh, okay. We're going to do it at the same octave. Let's give that a try. And then I'll probably go back in and program the modulation afterwards, just like I did with the soaring strings. Oh my goodness, what a difference, you guys. It doesn't sound so nasty and plasticky anymore. It just feels so much better. I think I'm going to go in and draw a little bit of the mod wheel a little bit and change it. So there's kind of a couple different steps to recording a orchestral performance when you're programming it. The first step is kind of to just play it in. Sometimes you record the mod wheel as you're going, but again, if you need two hands to play, you'll go in with a second pass. The third pass kind of is redrawing and retweaking the curves that you drew in initially with your modulation wheel. And I feel like this Symphobia strings, it feels just a little bit hot. I mean, it gets a little loud compared to the other ones. And the reverb didn't smooth that out quite the way I wanted to. So I'm probably just going to go in and alter these curves a little bit so it goes a little higher and then drops real fast. Let's take a listen. Even faster. See how I'm just redrawing it? And be careful about this, you guys. You see that big jump in MIDI? That's a sure recipe for bad programming, because you'll hear a hiccup. It'll get real loud when it shouldn't. I'm just going to do this here again. And again, we want it to get steadily louder because the whole passage is building. Okay. That's good enough for now. I might go back and fine tune that a little bit later. So we've kind of got our violins busy. Technically, if we were being careful about the orchestration, that would be probably first and second violins and maybe even some violas playing together. But we are in MIDI land, so technically our violas are still free. I would like to just have a standard viola patch just sustaining on our root note, which in this case is a G. And I'm going to have that kind of be out of the way of the rest of what my first and second violins are doing. And so I'm going to get a new long note patch from Symphobia. And this is interesting. So I'm actually going to use a velocity patch. Some patches are controlled by velocity, others by mod wheel. And what I'd like to do here is I just want to sustain a G underneath this and see how this feels. Yes. Okay, now because that is not mod wheel controlled, what we're going to do with that viola passage is we're actually just going to draw in some volume lines. Because again, because the patch is not controlled by the mod wheel, what we actually end up having to do is draw in volume lines. So I kind of like how it starts nice and low, and then I want it to build, in essence, kind of with each of those piano hits. So what I'll do is, using some volume automation dots, I'm just going to sync them up with each of these string changes, which coincide with the piano changes up here. And then it builds kind of to the end. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to push these around a little bit. And then it's got to get quiet again, just like the other strings. So it's going to go loud, soft, and then back to loud, back to soft. Maybe not all the way down though. Yes, that feels a little bit better. And you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and turn my reverb up a little bit more. It's feeling just a little bit dry. Again, we want this intro to sound bigger than life. And you guys, we have our intro. That is kind of how we go about sketching stuff out. And this is kind of the point at which I would move ahead. My impacts, there's a couple of things I'd like to change on them as I go along, but I've got my initial string parts down. I've got my main melody. I'll bring out that main piano melody so you can hear it a little bit more. But from a compositional standpoint, this is really sort of where we would begin. Tune in for the next part of the course, and we are going to start developing our main theme of our trailer.